Hey everybody, it's Tafony here once again. Hope you're doing well today. If you'll indulge me, I want to do a bit of a unique episode, a unique rambling about where we try and create the dream modulation module that I wish existed. And this comes sort of from a question I received on an Instagram DM recently that was like, hey, if you could create any module out of thin air, I guess, what would it be? So I'll talk about what that would be, and we're going to go from there. So forgive me if this is a bit of a weird one, but hey, I hope you'll indulge me, and I hope you will give me feedback on this that basically what I would love to see come from this is people saying, why would I ever want that? Or you could never make that because the manufacturing of those pots is super expensive, or this would never fit on a board of that size, or something like that. I just am curious what other people's thoughts and opinions are on it. So hit me with your feedback, or steal my design and make it yourself, because I'd be happy to just see something like this in the wild. So what would I like to see? I'm sure there's lots of other things that, gas exists for a reason, because things that I didn't know I needed come into existence all the time. But what I have been searching for, and what I settled on ordering recently, was the Acid Rain Technology Maestro. And for me, I love a modulation source. And yes, my writing is horrible. Modulation module. Forgive my writing. You've seen the credits. You already know this, hopefully. But I want to make a modulation module, or I would love to see a modulation module, a clocked one, of course. And I want to see it with attenuation. I don't really need to write these things, I don't think, but what we want to see is a hands-on, here, bullet points. That's what smart people would do. Hands-on modulation, clocked, and cascading, clocked. Simple, with attenuation. Someone in the comments on one of the videos, sorry, can't write and I'm trying to talk at the same time. I can't walk and chew bubblegum for that matter. Someone in the video for the noise engineering Clap Diaz said I was super stoked that it has output attenuation, and someone in the comments was like really offended that I mentioned that, and they were saying that there needs to be a standard for the attenuation being either with external attenuators or on the module side, and like some modules have attenuators at the input, but there's by no means a standard. And yeah, I completely agree that if input attenuation was like super common and the Eurorack part of the Eurorack standard, that I'd be super stoked, but it is definitely not the case in my mind. So I think all modulation sources should be easy to clock. I think all modulation sources should be able to attenuate without having to send it elsewhere, and they should be simple and performative. So whenever it comes to modulation and clocking, you are immediately thinking of this glaring piece over here that is the PAMS Pro, and maybe that is why nothing of this sort that I'm sort of thinking of exists, because that is a big beast to take on. However, when you get into a big system like this, trying to get down on using that for like clocked modulation, and yeah, partly that's because I placed it in my rack the way I placed it, but I just like to dive in here on those menus and make all of that happen. I just feel like I would love to reserve PAMS, as it's great, for the clock division duties, some of those sort of things, as opposed to I just want like really easy modulation. It's always like clocked modulation always comes with all these caveats, or menu diving, or it doesn't sync, or all of these other things. Like there's also Batumi, but again, that interface is just like finicky. You gotta have the manual handy to know what colors mean what channels, to know which is the attenuation, which is the phase offset, all of these things. We just want simple, easy, immediate clocked modulation that's attenuatable. So I want to say on that my original concept, and I said this in response to the DM, and I feel like, I don't know if this is from Top Gear or something, some car thing, but I remember there was like the car heat metaphor, and okay, so when it comes to car heat controls, you want where, where do you want it? How fast? Like the fan amount, and what temperature, right? What you don't want is I don't know, a screen that has temperature controls that you have to set it by, going through on-screen menu, that you don't want to have to go through and either, like a climate controlled set it the temperature like a room. So there's where I don't want to use defog. I want to send it to the passengers. I want to send it fast, usually when I'm setting the temperature. And what temperature? Well, I'm too cold right now because I live in Canada, so I want to turn it to hot and just do it that way. And that's so much easier than trying to crash your car into a wall by just diving through a digital menu or what have you. So if that looks something like this, these are supposed to be car gauges. This is where, so there's that arrow icon with the passenger. There's the defog icon. Sorry, if these aren't tiny, then they're also impossible to see. Or there's like that one where you can just have it at your feet or whatever reason. Then you want the power. So there's like the gauge that it increases for the fan speed. I know there's probably different iconography for all of that, but what temperature? There's like the blue, sorry, it's in pencil, so there's like cold and hot, and they like cross over. That's what I want in a modulation source. So you're probably screaming out a whole bunch of modules right now that you're thinking, well, why not this? Why not that? And I shouted them out in the comments because I just bought a used Dream Technologies Maestro off a seller in Canada that's on its way. And that does many of the things, but again, there's a shift function for the stupid attenuation. Put that on the panel. There's a whole bunch of other things. I believe that is the closest that comes to what I'd love to see, which is why I ordered it, obviously. But there are some little things, and I had it previously, and anyway, we'll have to get into that when we get into it. But if I was able to create a module, we're going to do this on this page. So using the metaphor of the car heating situation, if you're not getting bored of my rambling, hear some Vic X. Want some Doom? Let's play it. So I want to do like multiple channels, right? And so I'm thinking, like, could it be either the same thing 4 times, or do you sell this individually as one? So what we're going to start with is like mocking up one of the channels, and then maybe we'll talk about like, should you do a cascading thing? Because I kind of think you should. I just want one module that can do like 4 to 6 clocked modulation outputs, right? But let's get into it and see. So one of these channels per se, I'm just going to do a circle for the knob. We want to do, we want one level. I jotted down some notes here so this wouldn't be extremely laborious to watch. So there's one, this one I'm thinking level, this one I'm thinking shape, this one I'm thinking clock division. Did I get everything? Well, that's what multiple pages are for. So I'm thinking we have our first one. This is just going to be notes from the panel. Let's just jot in our pretend panel. Now, the other part of this too is you might look at this and be like, oh, this doesn't actually scale to your rack format. This is way too big, or leaves way too much blank space. I really doubt the latter, but that's part of why I want to just see what people think of it. So first one, level. So I'm thinking like 0 to 100. You can completely mute it by switching it all the way down. Output attenuation, as they say. Shape controls. Now, another module that I really like, but is just missing a couple things for making it perfect, is the Zone BF by EOWave. That it has just like simple, there's no output attenuation again, but you get 2 outputs, and it's basically just like shape, speed, or clock division if you're sending a clock in. And there's another control, I think, but like it's almost there. In fact, I'd say this is probably just a small improvement upon all of that. But I would also say if this was my module, my perfect world, this wouldn't require clock. Like you could use it, like it'll just go on its own if you're not sending it clock. And so this time division knob would be that. So no clock, it would be normal to 120 at the top, and I'm going to do another drawing on the other side here, but that'll be for time. And then I was thinking three-way switch. So I'm trying to think of an example I would have on here that there are definitely three-way switches in your rack, but I don't know. We're just going to draw a big old goofy switch. Here we go. And this will be polarity. And what I would love to see in a simple hands-on modulation source like this is you can have it be negative, bipolar, where it goes through 0, negative to positive, and then positive. So it's just like envelopes, basically, right? That's another thing that specifically I'm like, if you design modules, there's probably reason why that stuff doesn't happen. But hey, I am super curious to hear that. So these are knobs. Maybe we'll indicate them with little lines here to show that they're knobs. And then I'm thinking in the I/O, we want a. It's tough because I'm kind of making conjecture on what actually fits here, right? Like I just drew the panel, right? But hey, you know what? This is why I want to make this video. So first is going to be in for clock. Maybe I'll just erase that in without breaking my page. We'll go clock in, and then we want so there's the other thing too that I feel like, and this is coming from my use and the outside, Eurorack modules always have everything modulatable, even if it's the modulation source itself. So for my uses, I don't think I want to or need to do any patch points for the shape, the time, the level. But then maybe the level is one that I can see myself using. But I'm just like, this is to use the maestro metaphor, this is the conductor. Nobody tells the conductor to slow up and speed down or randomize. You being the conductor or controlling the conductor for your system, you come in, you twist those knobs. Now, that is probably one of the biggest pain points. And if there was a patch point for something, maybe it could be assignable. I see. I'm already thinking now, like firsthand. I'm like, that's probably where scope creep comes in for a lot of these manufacturers that build stuff. That I'm just like, how did things get so out of control, right? So I'm thinking, just for simplicity, maybe we'll talk about the other modules or the other patch points in. Just clock in to start. I don't know. For me, I would prefer, or I would sacrifice modulation opportunities in for output. So I want to do output 1, and I would love to have a phase out where if I have a sine wave, I get one output and then one 90-degree offset phase out output that is the same clock, the same wave shape, the same level, same everything, but does the opposite, essentially, of what one modulation source is. Sort of like, okay, this is going to be, I hope you like my chicken scratch. If one output is a sine like that, the other one would be a sine like that. And then you're essentially are able to duck things in an inverse way. So that is my idea. Now I'm thinking like, okay, let's pretend this is only going to be one quote-unquote channel. What would be on here? So level... if I can draw this out in more depth, I think that would be like, let's just draw the knob. This will be for level. Left is 0%, right is 100%. And then this one for shape, I think we're just gonna, I would love to see this one be like clacky, so maybe I'll just scribble around it, but I'd love to see snapping between the wave shapes, right? Or maybe you want it infinitely variable. Is that a thing? I'm also thinking this is digital module, right? Not an analog VCO. Be like a, yeah, because modulation, I want precision, right? Especially clocked modulation. So I'm thinking shape, we've got waveforms that go through, like, I don't know, a sawtooth. Here, let's draw that one in. If you have seen on the Zone BF, maybe I'll put a graphic up on right now. I don't think that one's clock or a click. I don't think it snaps between waveforms. I think it's infinitely variable. So I don't know. It starts with a saw and then turns into a triangle. Maybe triangle should be at the top because I feel like that's the classic modulation source, but then morphs into a sine and then into a pulse, and then maybe ends in random. Forgive this random squiggle, but random. I think that would be sweet. The implementation of that, I'm not. I think, okay, if I got to choose anything, I would make it clicky and make it selectable. I wouldn't make it morphable between wave shapes. I would just make it clicky. But then if that's not a possibility, then making it infinitely variable between wave shapes and then scanning, like able to morph in between them on your way, would be really cool. So, and then the time we would do, I would say, here, I'll write time. I didn't write it on the wave shape one, but that's okay. We'll make our time knob here. We'll normal this to 120 BPM at the top in case you're not using clock in, but the whole point is to use clock in. But then that would be indicated on the top, and I don't think maybe 1/16th. So if you're using clock in, this becomes a clock divider that you go all the way into 1/16th, or you can multiply it up to like 32 times, maybe. Yeah, does that make any sense? I hope so. Then on the polarity side, I'm gonna draw my little switch in, my three-way. So this will be on the left. I was thinking this would be neg for negative, bi for bipolar lighting, positive to negative. I hope you got my joke. And then positive for, like, you know, either, I think that's, they call it DC offset, where it's not an envelope, but it'll start positive, cycle positive, and remain, basically go back to 0 at the bottom of the cycle. So I think that is what I'd like to see. Now, yeah, if I could have that, that would be sweet. And I think that actually is a cool concept on its own in one module. But what if this became like a quartet? We'll just make sure you can tell these are knobs. Let's change up our VicX too. This is like a little doomy for, these are the ramblings of a scientist at the end of his rope. But okay, so there's one. There's two. Maybe I'll just circle these inputs, make them extra dark so you can tell they're inputs. 3. Forgive me, this is super goofy looking, but hey, this is what we're here for. And what we're also here for is 4. And my idea with this is that, sorry, these switches look especially bad. You could, if you wanted to, I don't know, and I'm picturing this at like 20 HP. Is that way too optimistic? That's another thing. This is why I wanted to make this video, but maybe this is called the modulator. It's a module for modulation, modulator. So forgive me, 20 HP. You can send one, this is supposed to be a clock, although it looks like the knobs. One clock goes into the clock input, and then it cascades down all of the other channels. So you get 4 clocked channels of attenuatable with dual outputs on each of them, and then you basically have a no menu, no button combo, huge quartet, literally a quartet of modulation sources in your rack that you never have to load a preset, never have to menu dive, you never have to do a shift function, you just send a clock. Where do you want it? Sorry, let's go back to page 1. you send it one clock and then across the 4 channels, or you can split it up into other ways if you like it, or if you have a, I don't know, a transition in a song that needs to use 2 channels, what have you. But you get to decide where do you want it. I want it, well, maybe that's not an apt metaphor. Where do you want it? And this one's probably the wave shape. How fast you want it, that's your speed, your clock divider. What temperature, that's your level at the top, and then I guess where would be your unipolar, bipolar switch in there, and then you get 8 channels of modulation, clock modulation. So yeah, there you go. There's the tafony modulator. Now, I fully invite you to tell me what is wrong with this design, why it can't be created, or why it would cost $1 million, or why there's no reason to use this, but or why most nice would be to find out that this already exists in something else. But I think the closest thing, at least I'm aware of, is the Acid Rain Technologies Maestro, which does most of these things, but they require button combos. It requires specifically one for the output attenuation, or it requires other modules, or if you think outboard attenuation is a dumb idea, and you just buy an attenuation module and you don't have to worry about any of that. So hey, there you go, tafony module Ator. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.